Hello, we're just letting everyone in the room, so welcome everybody. So great to see you here at our Genius School webinar. Hi all, welcome. So I'm Angie Stead and I'm here with some amazing educators who we'll introduce shortly. But our webinar today is about learning smarter, thinking smarter to do smarter. So it's a really, I hope you get a lot out of this webinar. It's going to be very informative, and we'll also be sharing a little bit about Genius School and the amazing successes that we've had through our programs. So welcome everybody, so great to see you. So like I said before, I'm Angie Stead. I'm the co-founder and leader of Genius School, and I'm here with Karen Bonanno, who many of you know. She leads the program we're going to feature today, which is the Teen Quest, as well as the Young Entrepreneur Academy. And Karen will soon introduce you to Leonie as well. So what we'll cover today is that we'll talk about Genius School, of course. We essentially offer child-centered, personalized learning pathways for young people. And our goal in Genius School is to ignite the genius in every young person. And in doing so, we're creating self-aware, lifelong learners, empowering our future leaders who are learning, creating, and earning together. So we do talk about that subject, the topic of money and how to make money, because it's a really important skill for all young people to learn. So it's not something taboo in our circle. And Genius School offers many programs. So we have programs for essentially the programs we'll talk about today with you, our VIPs, are preteen and teen programs. So we have our Young Entrepreneur Academy, which runs twice a year. So we have that at the beginning and then towards the middle of the year. So this is essentially our calendar you can see on the screen. So in Q1, we have our Young Entrepreneur Academy, and then we have our Genius Educator program, where we train educators on how to really personalize learning for children, and they can incorporate all that knowledge into their own products, services, or teaching practice. Or you can then come and run some of our programs either as a mentor, a facilitator, or even lead our programs in your country. So we run that program in the first quarter too, then first quarter as well, I should say, because then Q2, we have our Teen Quest program, which we're going to talk a bit more about in this session. And we have then after that our graduate leadership program. And then again, Q3, we have our Young Entrepreneur Academy and Teen Quest. And then at the end of the year, the last quarter, we run another Genius Educator program and graduate leadership too. And the great thing is that these programs are timed so that people can graduate from one program to the other. So they're not waiting like a whole year before they get that amazing learning. And then every quarter, we have our Genius camps running also throughout the world that are led by our Genius educators. So I would like to just talk about briefly what we'll cover, and then I'm going to hand over to Karen. So today we're going to cover the importance of developing and integrating future-ready skills into learning programs, because this is about actually having our learning being very experiential and very meaningful. So we don't separate subject topics and have silos working. We actually make the learning meaningful through a project or promotion based integrated plan. Then we're looking at the powerful alignment of talents, passions and purpose in order to stimulate our young people's natural creativity, because we want our young people to be internally motivated to learn. So they're learning because they want to learn, because they're doing something that's important to them and something that they enjoy. We'll also talk about strategies involved in active learning to learn smarter, think smarter, and do smarter. And these things are not often taught in school, and everybody needs these strategies, whether you're going to university, any further study, and certainly if you're running your business and running promotions, etc. And then we'll also discuss the Genius approach to skilling our teens for a successful future. So some great content. And in order to get going, I'm going to introduce Karen Bonanno, who's going to share some of the content of this program with you. So Karen, can I
Yes,
hand?
thank you. Thanks, Angie, and welcome everybody. What we might do is try and get you to key into our chat, because that's where we'll have a lot of the interactivity happening. If you can just key into the chat where you're from, and we can then get underway with this. One of the big things that we notice, and in particularly it's been accentuated a little bit over the last 12 to 18 months, is we've seen some massive changes in the way that education has been delivered, and it's all topsy-turvy. And in a recent survey, they indicated that there was 1 in 3 parents didn't believe that their child was being prepared for the future. And only a couple of weeks ago here in Australia, there was a survey done by a group called Australia Talks, and it was even more of a difficulty. We're saying that 43% of people were saying they were not satisfied, very dissatisfied, in fact, with the way kids were being prepared for the future. And so our focus here is the smart learning, smart thinking, smart doing. And that's because these are all the things that are starting to impact on what's happening with our environments and our world. And so we see, first of all, this automation is having an impact on the way people will be working in the future. And it's at a point where we're going to be having to learn on the job, because it's going to be moving so quickly. Things will change. So it's important for us, from our perspective in Genius School, that we get our kids to understand how to learn smarter, so that when they are out in the bigger world, that they will be able to know how to do that without feeling that they're being challenged or pressured or overstressed. And then, of course, there's the smart thinking component. And a lot of organisations are now saying that it's absolutely crucial that our young people start to learn these skills. These are these 21st century future-ready skills, like the ones that you see there: the critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, communication, creativity. All of these things are there, as well as innovation. And then the smart doing is, well, once you've got all that smart thinking and smart learning in place, where do you go to from there? And the emphasis we're seeing is this shift now into more of a global citizenship, because this is the way the world is working. It's 24/7 all the time. And that means that we're needing to develop these entrepreneurial skills, as well as leadership skills, as well as getting kids to be conscious that they have a voice and can add value and be a change maker. So we work from the position of getting them to think global, but act local in what they do. So with our Teen Quest, this is all the design around this program. This is why the program is in place. It's to develop these 21st century thinking skills. It's to develop learning skills. And it's also to give them a platform whereby they can then apply that with smart doing. And so we have 3 different levels here. We have the starting age of 10 going right up to 24. And so we've got different stages: the junior school, senior school, and graduate class. And what we do is we set them a quest. Now, I don't know whether people can key into the chat there what you think the idea of a quest is. I'll give you a little bit of a prompt. We think about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. They went on a quest. And so it's a little bit like that we've got with our Teen Quest Challenge, is we want them to understand that their innate genius that they all have, they have these natural strengths and talents and capabilities. And we're going to say, okay, put on that armor that you've got and let's go off on this quest, this inquiry, learning, seeking and discovering and searching for a solution. And then ultimately, then start to put on your leadership change maker hat and design and create something and present it in a persuasive way that you'll convince your audience for a need to change. Because what we've been seeing over the last 12 months or more is we're seeing young people's voices needing to be heard to bring about the change. And we're seeing that happening a lot in our community. And so what we're focusing on here at our Genius School level is really looking at addressing these essential items and components here that the World Economic Forum has put forward. First of all, down the right-hand side are the skills that are needed. So just as an alert, we'll get these slides to you. So if you're going, oh, Karen, it's too small, I can't read it, then we'll get the slides to you and you'll be able to look at those later. And also the link where you can read more about this report, which is all about schools of the future. So down here is the skills, and then over this side here is the learning environments that we need to have our young people in, whereby they're able to learn all of these skills, but apply them in a real world, authentic way. So at Genius School, we have this kind of different way of doing things when it comes to engaging our young people in learning. We first of all, it's like building a house, and some of you may not have built a house, or you build a house, you may have renovated, but it's a bit like that. If you can stay with me on this, the very first thing is we prepare the land. So we build that learning community and the space in which the learning will take place, and then we lay the foundation. And that's all about using our tools and our assessment tools that we've got and self-assessment material to help kids to understand their natural talent and capability, what we call their genius smarts, and then also to identify their passion, what they're absolutely passionate about, what they love, and then linking it in to their purpose. And that way, then we're bringing together a whole layer of components that will help them to be very focused on who they are, understanding their own level of self-awareness. And then we build the framework, just like here with this house, we've got this timber framework. We provide the framework through our inquiry-based learning approach, but also the identified skills that we want to integrate into that whole learning so that our young people don't learn these skills in isolation, but they learn them as part of the experiences and challenges that we put forward. Just to go back to lay the foundation, it'd be interesting to know how many of you who are on this call have heard this term ikigai and what it means to you in that sense. And this is what we use. We have all different assessment tools that come in about what you are good at, and that's our profiling tool. We have what you love, which is our passion test. What the world needs is our purpose test. And of course, here we bring in for them, and this is where they step up and start to create things as they want to, based on bringing together this kind of sweet spot in the middle, which then gives them this meaningful life, this having a life on purpose and having meaning and fulfillment, because they're engaged in something that brings together their talent, their passion, and also their purpose. So that's where this laying the foundation on which we will then start to build and design. Now, at this stage within Genius School, we kind of move away from what the traditional classroom is, where in a classroom, they all come into this one space. They're all of the same age usually, and they all are given a certain task to do, and they're all doing the same thing. What we do is we shift it. We've provided them with the foundation and the framework, but then we say, okay, you now start to enclose that framework. So if you're thinking about building a house, it's, are you going to put bricks around, or mud bricks, or fireproof cladding, or is it timber? We start to get our kids to start using the thinking skills that we're developing with them to start to enclose that framework that's themselves. So it becomes more student-centered. So they own what's happening here at this stage. And then, of course, in a house, you do these extra fixtures and fit outs. And this is where it's more personalized for them, and they take on this leading learning focus. Now, as you see in the image here, there's the scaffolding. And that's what we do as the educators supporting their learning. We're there to support their learning, not to tell them what they have to learn and not to tell them when they have to learn it. We actually provide the structure. So as you can see with the scaffolding, there's netting, there's steel planks, there's wooden planks, there's these metal posts. We have all these different strategies that help to support them in this whole learning process. So they go through, and then at the end, of course, there's this inspection, and it's kind of the finished product. And this is when we have this wonderful experience of showcasing the work that they've created as a young learner, and then considering the impact, because we're connecting it to it being a purpose-based. And if you go back here to the slide about being, it's a persuasive, purpose-based presentation. So this is where we're looking at that impact from their presentation. And then, of course, the handover is, we don't leave it there at that. We've given them the skills then, which are transferable to other situations. So we give them the tools as well. So then they can develop their own rhythm of how they learn at their best, how they create at their best, and ultimately how they might take what they've developed here and turn it into a product or a program or a service where they can then start earning. So that's our process that we do in the structure that we provide. And just to give you a bit of introduction to who is involved, well, there's myself, and I come from a background of education. I've been over 40 years, in fact, involved in education and doing a constant shift and change with the way the education has been delivered and moving more towards this inquiry and learner-based and student-centred and personal pathway to learning rather than doing a traditional classroom approach. And I also come from a teacher librarian background where the inquiry-based model has been quite strong with all the work that I've been doing in that space. And because now I'm working with Genius School and working with Angie, developing the curriculum and also delivering some of the programs. And I've got Leonie on the call as well. So Leonie, do you want to just pop on and say hello and introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Karen. Yes, welcome everyone. The journey that I've been on is very similar to Karen's. I also have been in education for about 40 years and have been a resource teacher and teacher librarian, and currently working with university students in an inquiry-based unit of work. So for me, inquiry learning is central to all of the learning and programs that I've been involved in, right from K right through to university. And that notion of authentic learning is also become much more significant, student-centred, and project and problem-based learning is central to what I do. So I'm really excited to be involved in this program because it provides an opportunity to tick all of those boxes of the sorts of things that I've been believing in terms of education for a very long time. So yes, I'm really excited about being on this journey. Thanks, Karen.
Great, thanks, Leonie. And also, you won't just get to meet us. Now, we're not going to be bringing these people in, but you will get to meet them because they're going to be our role models for being these young leaders and change makers. So we have William. Now, William was 14 years old when he actually got in front of a global audience. And his background was that his family was going through a severe famine. And also what was happening is, as a result, his family could no longer support him to go to school. So the reason I'm telling this story first is because he got to know the village librarian. And the village librarian helped William to continue his learning. And as part of that, he read about using energy, and he had this one photo that he then took and said, well, I can do that here. So he went around his village and he gathered all of these scraps of metal and bits and pieces, and he built a windmill that would then be able to pump the water from the deep, deep wells that were in his area to then help to get the agricultural produce back in and get things happening in his village. So as a result of that, he now speaks in front of global audiences. And so this is the type of thing that we're wanting to happen, is to have these young leaders emerging. And then we'll introduce you to Katie. Katie, at 9 years of age, was given a cabbage seedling. And so she went home and she planted it, but the animals in her neighbourhood were coming to eat it. So the family built this fence around it. And in the end, she had this 40-pound cabbage. And she thought, what am I going to do with it? And her mother suggested that why don't you contact one of the local communities that support the homeless. And so she took her cabbage along to their soup kitchen, and that's when her story began. She saw the impact that that had, and so she now is talking about and advocating for the need to be supporting people by growing produce and getting it out there. And then our last young person here is Boyan, and Boyan is the CEO of Ocean Cleanup. And I'm just going to go to his site because some of you may have heard about this. And of course, he was only 14 when he started this. And it's all about getting rid of the microplastics in the ocean. That what happens is all of the microplastics go out into the ocean, and there are these large islands of plastic. And so he has using advanced technology to get rid of that. And this is the big thing here. He's aiming to clean up 90% of this floating ocean plastic, and he will continue to work towards achieving that goal until it's actually done. So these young people started where we're going to be starting with our genius our genius teens in our Teen Quest. They started to get information and using their natural geniuses, using their thinking to step up. And we have actually one of our own graduates who stepped up and decided that he was going to give the voice to youth by holding this summit for young entrepreneurs. So Ben held this summit early this year in February 2021. And this is what his mum has to say. If we believe in youth leadership, then you'll appreciate that this event is completely powered by young people, so our young heroes can be inspired to become change makers too. So all the skills that Ben was able to learn, he was able to take into this summit. And then alongside of this, before February, he actually also developed a business as well. So he's been one of our graduates through the programs. So in our curriculum that we do, this is probably a little bit different than the curriculum you might have seen in a school environment, but our curriculum is all designed around getting kids to think, to apply their skills and to take ownership of their learning. And so we have our, as I said before, our tools. And so we have what we call our Genius Smarts for a start. So we have our Genius Ideas Smart, we have our Genius People Smart, we have our Genius Senses Smart, and we have our Genius Details Smart. Now, each of those think in a different way, but all of us have a little bit of that in each of us. And so what we do is we bring all of that together in our curriculum, the way that we learn. So right at the beginning, we use what we call convergent thinking, progressing through, and that is looking at the detail, looking at, right, let's get the problem, let's identify what is the problem here that is out there in the world that we need to start looking at creating solutions for. So that narrows it down to what we call convergent thinking. So we get into identifying specifically what the problem is. Then we start to expand it out. And this is what we call divergent thinking or intuitiveness. And that's where we get our people smart, our ideas smart coming in. And so it's getting insight into the problem and it's researching it and looking all around, discovering all the aspects of that problem. Then we start to move into scoping it down a little bit more and start to define, well, what is the specific problem? What is the issue? What are key questions or key question that I need to ask to then start looking for a solution? And then we expand it out again with our divergent thinking. But at this level, we bring in our sensory. So we bring in the concept of being purpose-based for the common good of mankind around us and for everybody to benefit, not just those immediately. So that's why, as I said before, we get them to think global, act local. So this is where they're looking at getting solutions, testing, developing, then starting to put it together in a presentation to then come out with a solution at the end, which is then that presented in that purposeful message to the audience that they're targeting. So that's the way our curriculum works. And then, of course, we align it with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, because that then gets people involved in making a contribution to the achievement of the targets that are set by 2030. And those examples that I gave before of the young people, they're all part of that whole movement. And we're seeing that growing and growing all the time with what's happening. So just to give you a bit of a quick introduction to the Teen Quest before I go into more details about what it is to take action learning into thinking and learning smarter and doing smarter. Our Genius School Teen Quest, as I said, is a 4-week. Now, it's not 4 weeks full on. It's 1 hour a day, Monday to Friday, and it involves mentorship, and it involves some small group facilitation and learning in that whole process. So in the Teen Quest, what's included in this is this 1 hour online a day, and that's in a self-managed time online plus also offline. And then on the Tuesday and Thursday, we have live masterclasses that go with that. And we have different time zones. And according to, as our student base grows, we build in more time zones to accommodate that. But what's happening is on the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they're in an online discussion space with us where they can talk to Leonie and I through that online discussion, and we can help them to go through their whole learning. So that's the scaffolding that I mentioned before as they take charge of their learning. They also get access to this discussion forum and information space, and they also get access to a learning portal where we have lots of resources that are designed to meet all the different learning styles of our young people. We also have templates there that they can use as they work through the quest, as they go on this discovery and learning journey on the quest. And then we also have lots of videos to support them as well. And they're going to have access to this particular learning portal for as long as they want to, well and truly after the 4 weeks, because as I said, it's that handover moment where we want them to take the skills that they've learned and then apply them to other situations, but continue to be supported by the resources that we offer. So there's this personalised small group learning that takes place, and that's particularly on the Tuesday and Thursday. They're connecting in with like-minded teens, and they're getting access to our talent dynamics, teen dynamics for young people report, which identifies their natural strengths, capabilities, what they're good at, even what they're not so good at, how they need to really focus on the strengths to then get into their flow, to be able to learn smarter and think smarter and do smarter. So if you're finding what we're talking about so far is of interest, then I'll get one of the team to actually pop in the calendar link there, which is booking a call with one of our team to talk about how this could be really useful for your child if you're wanting them to start to develop these future-ready skills, but also start to really apply some smarter techniques to how they will learn. So before I go on, I'll just stop sharing there to see whether Angie can let me know if there's any questions. Or, yep, you're just on mute there, Angie.
No questions, Karen.
Okay.
Not yet, anyway. So
okay.
remember, guys, you can post questions in the chat as well.
Yeah, because we will have time to stop at the end and answer any questions that you've got. All right, I'm going to just make sure I'm on the right screen. Someone will tell me if I'm not, for sure. So I'm just going to shift things now and kind of go back in time to a guy called John Dewey. And he actually said this statement: if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. And for someone to be back in, the 19th century there saying that, it really should start to make us think, well, have we progressed forward in what we're doing? Has education changed? Are we actually teaching today's students in a way that they will have a significant future? And this got me thinking about the way that we've transitioned through history, but have we transitioned through in our education? And so in the Industrial Revolution or the Agricultural Revolution, it was focused on the hand. It was focused on people using their hands to create things and make things and be involved in manufacturing. And so what was needed in the teaching then, in education then, was really just helping them to earn a living in that capacity. And then, of course, we moved into the 20th and early 21st century, where the information revolution, so this is the head, where we were filling our head with lots of knowledge and lots of information. So back here, it was about the them and us. It was them who were, getting rich by having these big manufacturing, and the us who were the workers. In the information revolution, knowledge economy and information age, it tended to come back to kind of me, right? Me being knowledgeable, me having this information. How can I use knowledge to be powerful in what I'm doing? And so our education, even then, was still locked back in this industrial revolution. Whereas here, people were going out because they had access to the technology. They had access to the internet when all of that then became available. So people could go out and find the information, but they could also create things for themselves in that environment. And then I was trying to do some search, and maybe someone who's on the webinar, if they put into chat, maybe you know what this next revolution is all about. And I was trying to find what could be the term. I do know that Roger James Hamilton, who is part of the Genius Group, talks about Humanity 5 and Society 5. And this is all about the age of experiences people experiencing things for themselves to the point that they do become passionate about it. They do start to own it. They do want to step up and make a difference. And that's why I put sort of humanitarian revolution, but maybe someone on the call knows what this next revolution is, but this is where the heart comes in. So it's really involving all of our holistic approach to the way that we need to be engaging in society. And we're seeing that movement happening even now with young people. And so we've got things like these particular skills now starting to be considered the top skills of this next era, where we are building in this social influence and taking leadership and stepping up and working with people, as well as being self-managers of our own learning, and also developing these resilience, these kind of grit, what would be considered soft skills in some circumstances, but learning to be able to kind of stick with things and stay with it when we know that we're on purpose and we want to achieve something, as well as developing the problem-solving skills, but also too using the technology smarter. So this is the smart learning. So it's making sure that we're using the technology in a way that's going to be delivering to that Humanity 5, Society 5. And the way that we focus on this within the Genius School in particular with our Teen Quest is we engage students in this action learning through the smarter learning, thinking and doing. So the very first thing that we do is we open up their minds to learning by stimulating their curiosity. So we explore a global issue or challenge, and with everybody in the same space, considering, well, what it is there. And we start to say, well, let's start to wonder why. What would happen if you did this? Or what would you want to do that would make a difference in the world? Then start to engage them in some of those higher order thinking skills to understand some of the depth of the global challenges and start to them get aware. And this is where we immerse them in the particular environments where we've got people like William and Dylan and others who are doing things, and start looking at what are other young people doing out there that are making a difference and how could we learn from them in that space. And then connecting things up with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and getting them to focus on one in particular that they really want to start to follow. Then we shift things through then to say, well, let's look at keeping our minds open, and let's use open-ended questions to start getting things in place so that we can dive deeper into our chosen problem that we've identified early on. And then moving them into, well, if you're going to go out there and be a leader and a change maker, then you've got to start to look at gathering information that's going to support you to develop that persuasive, purpose-based message. So we're going to be teaching them skills, and these are crucial now that will support them for their ongoing learning. Is how do they get smart about locating material? How do they then curate that material so that they can go back to it? But more importantly, how do they start to really work out what is misinformation, what is fake news, what is truth, what is misleading? And we're going to help them to understand and develop those skills to get really smart, rather than just going into Google and typing in the question that they've got for their assignment and just taking the first few sites that come up. It's getting them to be thinking smarter about this. How do you navigate a digital landscape? And then looking at gathering and synthesizing. And again, it's that scaffolded learning of providing the tools that help them to do that. So this really starts to get them thinking with more clarity about, is this information going to really solve the problem? Or is it just some extraneous stuff that sounds good, it's a bit fluffy, but it's really not going to make any sense? So again, getting them the skills that they can really synthesize that information down so that they really stay laser focused and targeted at looking at solving their particular problem. And then we get to this designing and creating stage where they start to say, well, who is my audience out there? Where do they hang out? What type of methods can I use to communicate my message clearly so that they will understand it and they will get it, but also that they will then take action, that they will step up and do things differently around the particular United Nations Sustainable Goals topic that I've done. And so this is where we we connect them in back up here with this particular aspect of the skills is utilizing the technology that's out there to be able to use it as a very powerful communication platform or message. And then we don't leave out this whole self-reflection, because if we don't stop and reflect on the way that we've learned and the information we've got, and even us as an individual and a learner, then we're not going to be able to really step into taking things to a higher level. We're just going to rush into the next project or rush into the next activity. So we do spend some time doing this self-reflection. And then, of course, at the end, developing the rhythm. How do we transfer the skills that have been learnt into other spaces to learn, also to create, but also to take things to another level where you can maybe the child can maybe develop a product or a service or a program and earn from that. And just as an example from our community, we have 3 of our young graduates who've taken things to a whole new level and partnered together to develop a program that's really helping other kids to learn what it is to be a young entrepreneur themselves. So there is this growing group within our community that are developing their future-ready skills and an entrepreneurial mindset, but they're taking it out there and they're helping other teens to be involved. So, you and your teen can be involved in the Teen Quest. So what we do encourage in our programs is we encourage the parents to be involved as well. So that there's so much that can be added by you supporting your child through this whole learning process. And so to give you an idea here, this is our kind of curriculum that we cover over the time of the 4 weeks, that hour a day, and then probably an hour or so offline working on the learning tasks that we've got in place. So we start our very first part of the program is looking at that concept of understanding themselves and their ikigai. And then we have a day where it's with Leonie and I and some other educators where we're helping them to understand and implement that. And then we progress through to, first of all, opening their mind to curiosity and wonderment and imagination about what is it in the world out there that we want to solve? Is there some kind of burning issue that you see or some challenge? And that's how those young people that I introduced before came up with that. They had a problem and they saw that, okay, let's look at stepping up and making a difference. Then we do another implementation day and then go into information immersion. So these are our mentor content days, exploring possibilities. So you can see all of these, you can have a look at these slides, but you can see that it's a progressive way of doing it. And then in between these programs, we have these small group sessions where we're supporting each other. And so with our learning portal, this is just to give you a little snippet into one of our modules that we have. So we've got, it's only a short video. It's only like 20 minutes for each video. And then there are different things that are going to be happening, different tasks that the learner will undertake. And we have a playbook that they work on, so they can access those modules. And once we open the learning space, they can go at their own pace. But also too, we will be in the actual discussion forum so that questions can be asked as they go through that. And then our live interactive sessions are on the Tuesday and the Thursday. And as I said, there's this private group where they post questions. They can collaborate. They get to hang out with other teams that are also working on similar tasks and identifying things. And this is where what happened here is this is where these 3 guys ended up getting together. They found each other in our space, in our community, and they stepped up and took things to a whole different level. And then, of course, we'll have extra bonus recordings that we put in this our circle to support our young learners as they go through as well. We also, as I said before, we have this resources portal, and Leonie has been right behind the scenes there developing this so that it's available to our learners after the Teen Quest, because it's so crucial. There'll be tools and templates and material in there that will help them through their whole learning journey as they progress before. So it's going to be lots of contemporary resources, lots of support, lots of information in there as well. And then, as I said, Leonie and I are going to be there. So we'll be there for the mentor sessions, but also we're going to be there for the personalised small group learning together with other educators. And that's where people can ask questions and where they can support each other in their learning. So we do encourage collaboration. At school, it's probably called cheating, but here we call it collaboration, where we get everybody to pool their ideas and their thinking and support each other in this whole learning process. Also too, as I said before, we have these particular reports. So we've got this free report, and if you've got a young person in your life, when you get the slides, get them to do this free little genius quiz, and that's where they get to find out whether they're ideas smart, people smart, senses smart, or detail smart. And then every student who comes with us gets their teen dynamics report, and every parent will get their talent dynamics report. And the teen dynamics reports have been, well, first of all, there was the talent dynamics report that was developed by Roger and Michelle Clark. And then when parents were doing this, they were going, hey, shouldn't we have a similar report for kids? And this is how the teen dynamics report has come in. And that's a vital report. And it's really helpful for young people, not just with this program that we're doing, but they can use it over and above, particularly when maybe they're going for looking at work. They can use it as part of their resume, part of their curriculum vitae. But we focus particularly on their strengths and how they can use their strengths and their natural capabilities to be smarter at their learning. So how can you be involved? Well, we have 15 spots, and that's why we said this was a VIP call. And we are going to be offering 15 spots at our reduced price here of $475 is a VIP. Normally it's $595. So this is a unique opportunity for you and your child, or even you, if you're on the call and you're a young adult, you're one of the graduates at a graduate level, you will benefit. And as Leonie shared, she is working in that space and constantly finding that young people, even in that area where they've entered into higher education and university, they struggle to really know what it is to be smart at their learning, because they wait to be told or they wait to be guided. And this isn't the environment that's happening around us now. We've got to get smarter in what we do. So it's a chance to develop these critical, innovative and creative thinking skills to be future ready. And so you can do that by booking a call. It's a free call with our Genius School team, where they will take you through more information about the Teen Quest. So you'll need to go to that link. Now, you will get the slides. If you go to the site, you'll see it's at the price of $595. So you won't be able to get our special V price unless you book a call. So that's important that you do that. So this is where we need to be in this space, because this is the potential of where your young person can go. You can be like one of these young leaders. This is Melati and Isabel, and this is their story behind where they started. It started as a school project, but then when they started to think about that, they thought, well, what can we do now as children living in Bali to make a difference? And that's where Bye Bye Plastic Bags was born. And as you can see, over the years, these young girls have been very influential in the world, because they went on that whole quest and learning journey, put together their persuasive message and got it out there. And so they have lots of groups now around the world have the Bye Bye Plastic Bags program. And then, of course, most of you would probably be familiar and heard about, oh, I put great there. I need to get that sorted out. I'll fix that slide up. She may be great too with some of the things that she does. But Greta Thunberg started with, first of all, it was interesting. She wanted to get her parents to change their lifestyle choices to reduce their carbon footprint. And that's how it started. And then she did this sole appearance on the steps of Swedish Parliament for looking at climate change. And now over the period of time, she has stepped up as a young leader and a young advocate for climate change and spoken at many locations, but also too been recognised as most influential and also person of the year by the Time magazine. So this is where certain things can really change for you with your child being involved in our program. So I'm just going to stop sharing screen here and see if anyone has any questions. If Angie's on the call there.
Yeah, Oh, of course I am. Yeah, we have a very interesting comment from Fi, I think it's pronounced, a general question around if students can only hang out with like-minded learners virtually, what about them being able to meet people in person who are not like themselves? So very interesting question. And, you know, my first response to this, and I'd like you to talk more, Karen, to this, is that we do run face-to-face programs as well. There's benefits to both face-to-face and virtual. Genius School being a global education movement, there's many benefits to growing a child or young person's self-awareness and learning so much more about themselves and others by interacting with people from all over the world. And we've seen amazing examples of where our students, people from our programs, have actually collaborated with other students, not even in the same country as them. And so there's amazing benefits in learning and personal growth in doing so, but also with the face-to-face programs as well, because we have educators trained all over the world to run our programs, and they're run locally. So, for example, our camps. Karen, do you have any more to add?
Oh, well, I'll just pop back to screen here and pick up what you were saying there. So these three young fellows come from actually, or are located in different geographical locations. So Luke is in the United Kingdom, Alex is in Australia, and Ben is in the USA. And so they came together and developed the Rich Kids Global, where they're focusing on supporting young people. And of course, in time, they will then be able to be in a face-to-face environment. But then if I go back to an example here that I shared with you, you know, Greta, through identifying her own natural capabilities, and of course she has Asperger's, depending on how you want to pronounce it. So she became attuned to who she was. And so in her own words, she says, because of my ability here, I only speak when I need to speak. And so she has identified that her ability is to know when to speak. And that's just the way she is. But she started off just on her own, but then began to gather a lot of other people who then joined her. And over the years, we've seen this massive movement for Fridays for Future, and we've seen it taking shape globally around the world. So it might mean that they start off in a virtual environment by themselves, just meeting other people, but there are the opportunities when they can get to other events and other locations. And it's this whole development of these leaders and change makers where they do develop the confidence and the courage to be able to stand up and say there needs to be change. And if we can get them through our Teen Quest to develop their skills in that they can develop a purpose-based persuasive message, then that's an early start. And so there's great potential for them for where they can go to from there.
Cool. Thank you, Karen.
So I don't know if there's any other questions, but I thought it was appropriate to just end off the call with listening to the youth voice, not that of adults. And I don't know whether people have kind of explored what's been happening over this last 12 to 15 months, but for a lot of young people, they have felt that they haven't been listened to. And so here, Dylan is in Australia, and he is involved in a group in Victoria, one of our states, where they're trying to explore how they can support young people through this whole crisis. And so for him, he made the statement that young people will be expected to pick up the pieces. So it is only fair and reasonable that we are given a voice and are heard. And then here we've got a former Save the Children youth ambassador saying, it's my hope that the voices of young people are not only listened to, but are respected and understood. Our opinions need to be heard, not only by those in power, but the adults around us. And it's these messages that we get from young people that really do drive us for the type of programs that we develop. And that's what the Teen Quest is all about. It's providing a safe, secure, open space and a platform whereby young people can develop the skills and be supported through that skill development, knowing that they'll be nurtured and they'll be supported along the way to develop their message, to give them a voice, that they will be able to speak up about what are the things in this world that need to be changed, where we can make a difference and where we can go to whatever this new movement is. If I can find my slide, whatever this new revolution is, we need to be having our young people step up, because they are the youth of today, but they are definitely the leaders of tomorrow.
That is brilliant. Very well said, Karen. Hey, just before we do jump off, Leslie's asking a question about how do we deal with a situation where a student doesn't discover something particular to focus on? And it's a great question. And I'm glad you asked it, Leslie, because first of all, I'd like to say we have never had that situation. We've had a situation where people have been maybe past halfway through our program before they've realized exactly what their focus needs to be. But the more through our experiential learning programs, the more that our students develop their own self-awareness, the closer they get to understanding what's important to them and what they need to focus on for their for whatever project or plan they're working on. Karen, do you have
well, what you've said is our experience. But with the Teen Quest, what we do is we also try to get them, like, start big and then start to fill. So if I go back to this particular slide to try and explain this to you. So it might be there is a problem, is this initial point, but then we expand out, so exploding it out. And then what we do is we say, well, do you really want, you can go for a specific goal, but you might want to go for a theme. So we guide them through this whole process, that there are themes that run through the global goals, and they could pursue a theme rather than a specific goal. So all the way along, we're guiding them, acting like what do they call it? The guide on the side, rather than the teacher at the front with the fount of all knowledge. We just guide them through that process. I come from a rural background, and the image that comes to mind is a mother cow with her baby calf. That when the calf is born, it's a bit wobbly and not quite sure, and she will just use her nose to guide her baby calf. And it's a little bit that way as well, that we just guide and nurture the pathway of their learning without telling them what they have to learn and when they have to learn it, but we just help them to get the process in place for understanding how they can learn at their best. As Debbie said, they're a co-pilot. Yeah.
Can I just interrupt there too, Karen? The other thing I think that is really powerful about this process is, unlike school where students follow the curriculum and they're told what it is that they need to learn and study, we actually try and get them to engage things that they are emotionally invested in. So we start off with, what is a concern or a problem that you see happening in the world today? So there's an emotional investment in it for them as well, which I think is probably one of the most powerful parts of the process, because when they're self-motivated and it's something that affects them emotionally and they think that they can be empowered to make a difference, that's a really powerful part of the process. And I don't think people are disengaged because they've chosen what it is, rather than being told, here you are, here's a topic that you've got to do. So it's almost the reverse of the sorts of things that happen at school. And I think that's one of the powerful parts of this process.
Yeah, thank you, Leonie. That's great. So if we haven't got any further questions, now I notice we've got some people have just arrived in. I'll just let you know that we will be sending you a recording of this as well as the slides. So you'll get a follow-up email and you'll be able to go back. And so then if you do have any questions, you can just reach out to us to be able to answer that. So if there's no more questions, what we'll do is we'll bid you all adieu. And for me, I look forward to having you and your significant young person in your life join us for the Teen Quest and taking the journey with us as we go through developing our young leaders and change makers of tomorrow.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
The
Bye.
link is in the chat if you want to grab it before you jump off, if anyone wants to book a call. Bye all.
Right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Angie. Bye, everybody.